Welcome to another episode of Daily Musings from Sacred Ground. Today I'd like to propose a new word, at least a word that's hardly ever been used. And the term that I'm suggesting is Era-centric. E-R-A, era, the period in which, specifically the period in which we live. And Eracentrism is kind of an exclusionary focus on this era, or a putting this era up on some sort of pedestal, or throwing it in some ditch. It's this view of, we are at such an advanced place, or we are having these new ideas and fresh thoughts that no one has ever had, or on the other side, things have never been worse. People have never been this bad. And so it can go one way or the other, but it's this view of almost an exclusive view on this era without looking really not much toward the future, and certainly not toward the past. I think maybe with the cultural divide, there's this tendency, kind of this dualistic tendency to, for some people, to look back at the past and just romanticize and glorify and the good old days. And then, equally false, there's this view of just denigrating the past, how awful everything was, and just the terrible, there's nothing to learn from the past. We are starting afresh, starting anew. It seems to me that we're doing ourselves a great disservice by not giving appropriate attention to past times and not looking at them through some, one-dimensional lens, but looking at past times and saying, hey, what was really good about that era, and what was really harmful or hurtful about that era, and then doing our best to, can we bring forward, are there some ways that we can bring those strands forward that were beneficial? And if some of those harmful parts, if they're still manifesting, are there some ways we can cut those back? And trying to weave a reality that grants its due to the past and draws from it in beneficial ways. I suspect that our ancestors in, the 1870s or in 1905 or in 1523, they probably thought their time that was it. And so maybe it's a natural tendency for us as humans to have that perspective on our own era, to have this Era-centrism. But can we not start to look and draw from not just one era, and of course not just one culture, but looking from all these different past times and looking toward all these potential futures, and not having this absurd black-white view of the past and saying, it was all bad, it was all wonderful. No, that's not it. Sorry. There were beneficial things, there were harmful things. There were some things that people were doing much better than we're doing now. There were other things that they were doing just as bad, and of course a lot of things they were doing worse. How do we weave together these strands from our histories? We're not separate from this past. It's a part of us. And we as humans, perhaps unlike any of the other earth beings, we have this incredible potential to draw from that past. I was in seminary from 2014 to 2017, and my father-in-law went to the same seminary maybe 30 years earlier or so. And while I was there, I realized we probably didn't read anything that he had read. That was all just the past. How can we learn to draw from the past, learn from it, disagree and agree with it, argue with it, applaud it, and go forward with a future that weaves more of the worthy strands of numerous eras together, rather than just having an Eracentric point of view. I'm Michael Malley, and you've been listening to Daily Musings from Sacred Ground.